Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. And I wanted to talk today about something that's been on my mind lately, which is what I see as a decline in good story structure in comic books, as well as even some superhero television shows and even the movies here or there. But particularly in comics because of the nature of the issues that we receive. So you have usually longer story arcs that come out issue by issue. And sometimes those issues come out once a month. That's probably the average. DC's Rebirth Initiative has some titles still coming out twice a month, which is nice. But some titles, of course, like the Doomsday Clock, it's just been released that I think after the next issue, we're going to have to wait like 3 months for another one or something. And they've got some sort of silly BS reason for that, but it's quite silly. And this is a problem. It's a problem in the nature of storytelling. Everything is subordinate to the larger editorial mandates, so universe-wide continuity and such. And it's just it's hurting the stories of many of our comic book heroes and lines in a lot of cases. Not every single case. I don't even think I would blame specific comic book writers necessarily, because I think sometimes it's just the nature of the industry, the nature of the beast, that these issues have to come out here and the editors are going to push these sweeping mandates and so forth. And I think maybe it's just a struggle between continuity and good story, and which one is more important. And continuity seems to be winning out. And continuity isn't a bad thing. Continuity is wonderful, but not at the expense of story. So I'll give you some examples of what I mean. Kind of start slow. I mentioned Doomsday Clock already. This Doomsday Clock has been a pain in the butt to follow. It hasn't been bad. I'm enjoying seeing what's going to unfold. It looks like it's going to be a cool story. But with this long arc, and they're just sort of dripping it out little by little over a year, it's just a ridiculous way to tell this story specifically. We're also in ignorance of knowing when is this taking place. Specifically, where is it taking place? As soon as I saw Batman's costume in the last issue, I thought, well, maybe that's the Old Earth 1, because that was the Old Earth 1 Batman costume. But then somebody mentioned, and that made sense because of the whole Superman theory they're talking about, and this DC universe that the Doomsday Clock story is taking place in is just nothing like the wonderful DC Rebirth universe that has been brought back. So I thought, well, clearly this has to be not the same one. Maybe we're going to visit first and see what Manhattan does to an alternate DC universe, Earth, and then we'll come to our own and try to stop that or something maybe. But then someone mentioned to me that maybe this is actually taking place, a year down the line in our Rebirth continuity. So all of our comic titles are going to slowly get to that point, and that just seems really problematic. I mean, that can work. I understand that the Doomsday Clock is going to be the big definitive triumph of hope and triumph of the Rebirth style spirit and everything. So that's fine. That story could work, but it just makes no sense as to why you would start telling that story now and so slowly. I know a lot of my viewers will probably feel the same way, and I'd like to know your thoughts on this, but some of the titles I subscribe to, and I subscribe to a lot, I mean far more than I responsibly should, to be honest, but some of the titles I subscribe to come out so slowly that I have to go back and read like 2 or 3 prior issues to the new one just so I can get a sense of good arc and like remember everything and what's happening and what's going on. Few people are even writing issues with any kind of miniature arcs in them. Some still do, but more often than not, you really just get the sense that they're telling this long story and it's just been chopped up and you're just getting spoonfuls of it every month or so. And there's no real sense of, even a novel should have a sense of story arcs to each chapter. That, they should have a sense of completion, a sense of gaining ground and tying up certain things as you go along. That's why it's such a breath of fresh air when I find standalone story comic books, even within a run. The last issue of Superman, for example, just a wonderful story. Not only because of the content, Superman and the rest of the Justice League helping these children at a children's hospital, that was wonderful, but also just the fact that, okay, we have a cohesive, complete story in one issue that works. It's beginning to end. All the themes and everything are there. You don't have to go wondering about this or that, or going back and digging into the back issues and trying to remember what was going on there with the character's motive or whatever. That's just really ineffectual storytelling. And I wish the industry would do something to fix this a bit. Now, I know that I might be bothered by this a little bit more than a lot of people because I, am somebody who's studied writing. I've studied, the structures of stories and how to put them together. That's what my degrees are in and everything. And as one of my friends, Big Al, recently said, he said, a chef shouldn't go to McDonald's, so of course it's going to bother you more than others. And I understand that. At the same time, that doesn't mean that, a non-chef can go to McDonald's every day. I mean, that's junk food. It's going to slowly kill you, So in an artistic manner, artistically speaking, with the stories and stuff that you intake, if you intake nothing but subpar stories, movies, shows, or whatever, then that does something to your sensibility for proper narratives and your sensibility for the beautiful and what is artistic and how to grow spiritually, if you want to go that route, or even just as a human being psychologically through the narratives that we tell each other. So it's important, even if you're not necessarily trained in it. I think the best way to explain what good storytelling should be, whether it's over a longer arc, through sort of episodic, complete arced issues, or in sort of one-shots, is that I'll quote Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is really just the father of modern short stories. He's so much more than just a creepy poet or creepy short stories writer, as many people take him to be. But he believed in something, and he preached the cause of something he called the unity of effect. And this is the idea. He believed that every story should be of a length that can be finished in one setting. Now that, people's attention spans and people's distractions in life and whatnot, that changes over the years. So maybe that length is significantly shorter now than it was in his day. But he did believe that you should be able to finish any story in one setting because that's how you get the effect of that story. All of the way the language is crafted, the sentence structures, the vocabulary that's chosen, the word choice, and the imagery that you're seeing, the way it's built upon things. He was just a master at building these tales and really trying to get a specific reaction out of the reader, a specific effect. And he believed you could only really build a good short story on one reaction from a reader. Now, you might take issues with little snippets of that or whatever, but I think that the principle is still a good one, that you have to have a unity of effect. You have to be able to finish a story, or at least a good complete arc within a larger story at one time. Otherwise, it's not going to be very memorable to you. I mean, some of the issues of The Flash that I've been reading, it's gotten a little bit better in recent issues, but sometimes they're just painful to get through. They're almost like I had to hurry up. And I mean, I still appreciated the character and how he's, come back and seems more iconic and stuff, but it was just I could tell they were trying to tell a longer tale, but it was just boring because I wasn't getting much at a time from each issue. And it was just, there was no sense of satisfaction there. From a narrative standpoint. So I really do think that the unity of effect needs to be more strongly adhered to. You see it in television with the longer seasons, and that's starting to be curbed with the advent of Netflix seasons or Hulu seasons and such, where they're much smaller seasons in length, like Runaways was 10 episodes or something. And that's better. You can tell a good, strong, concise story arc within 10 episodes. But when you have the shows that are 20-some episodes per season, like Arrow or Flash, you get those points in the middle where they just start to lag. The pacing is because they can't, go too quickly because this was the villain or the challenge, the thing they need to accomplish and wait for the big finale at the end of that season, and they just have to kind of slow up to make sure they get there at the right point and everything, and it just becomes kind of tedious and tiresome. A lot of people have been mentioning that about shows in general, not just necessarily any one in particular, and the answer is to either make smaller seasons or do something like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did last season, which was just brilliant, which is where they told 2 or 3 different mini arcs within the one season. So first you had the Ghost Rider arc, and you fought against, the mystery of who the Ghost Rider was and his uncle and everything, and that was taken care of. And then you had Ada and the life model decoys and the virtual reality they got sucked into, and that was a great separate arc. So you got a good sense of completion from the first one. The pacing was wonderful. Nothing felt rushed or prolonged, and pacing was good. And then by the end of the second arc, Ghost Rider came back. So you did have a sense of unity between the two arcs. So the whole season worked well together. So that's another great way to approach it. If you're not going to do a short arc, at least do some mini arcs within. That's a great answer for television. Movies, I think the big problem is between editor cuts and producer or studio mandated lengths. I mean, of course, we people are arguing about that with the Snyder films. But I don't really, in that case, I don't really think there'd have been much there, even with his original visions intact. But that's always an issue there too. In comics, I don't really have a stronger solution to it. I think maybe if writers could be more mindful of telling that longer story, and even if it's editorially mandated what that story needs to be, tell that longer story within some good complete arcs that you can do issue to issue. And I know that comic issues aren't too terribly long, so I'm not trying to burden or trying to lessen the greater arc by making it be these little complete arcs. But you can provide completion in an issue with more than a complete narrative tale. I mean, you don't have to answer all the questions and have all the loose ends tied up by the end of each issue. You can have sort of a thematic sense of completion, at least, and that would be more pleasing. So I'd really like to hear from you, though, if this is something that bothers you when story arcs in certain titles just run so long and the issues come out so sparsely that you're having to go back and catch up. And especially if you read a lot of titles like I do, it's hard to keep some of them straight sometime. Specifically, I'd like to know what you think about the Doomsday Clock story thus far. I feel like I really can't judge the story quite yet. There's many things that are making me raise my eyebrows. It's great to have Gary Frank's art back. It's great to know that Jeff Johns is handling this story. I like what he said he was going to do with the story, but I really don't feel like I can judge it yet because I know nothing. And that's kind of silly 3 issues in. 3 issues in this big Superman event comic, and Superman hasn't even shown up yet. And I know there's a lot more to come, and they're really working on an end game, a long game here, and that's fine, but just the way it's coming out is really tedious, I think. Anyway, love to know your thoughts on that. Otherwise, tune in later. I will get back to some more discussions about superhero comics and television, movies, and all that good stuff. So until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the superhero stories you love. Thanks for watching.